You know, when you watch Parliament, it can often seem like, well, pure chaos, right? A lot of noise, a lot of shouting, a lot of really passionate debate. But believe it or not, underneath all that, there's a highly structured system of rules and, procedural tools that MPs use to get things done, to hold the government accountable, and sometimes to even bring it down. So let's take a closer look at this toolkit and see how it really shapes our political landscape. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the emergency levers, the tools you pull for really urgent issues. Then we'll get into how debates are managed and controlled. After that, we'll look at the high-stakes motions, the ones that directly challenge the government. And we'll finish up with the tools used to manage Parliament's very busy schedule. So, how can just one member of Parliament actually stop a debate in its tracks, or challenge the entire government, or maybe even bring it crashing down? Well, the answer lies in these powerful procedural tools called motions. Think of them as formal proposals that let Parliament take a decision or express an opinion. These are the gears that make the whole parliamentary machine turn, and they're what we're going to explore today.
Okay, first up, let's talk about what happens when something so important crops up that it just can't wait for the scheduled business. These are the emergency levers an MP can pull to say, hold on, we need to talk about this now.
So think of this first one, the Adjournment motion, as Parliament's big red emergency brake. It's a pretty extraordinary tool that basically says, stop everything you're doing. This issue, maybe a natural disaster or a major accident, is so critical we have to discuss it right now.
Now, you can't just pull this brake whenever you want. The rules are incredibly specific. First off, it's a Lok Sabha-only tool. And you can't just raise a general problem like, say, unemployment. It has to be about a specific, definite, urgent event. And here's the big one. You need the support of 50 other members just to get it on the floor for a discussion. It's a really high bar to clear.
Now, if you don't want to slam on the emergency brake but still need an answer on something urgent, there's the calling attention motion. This one is less disruptive. It doesn't stop the House, but it acts like a sharp, public demand that forces a minister to come and provide an immediate, official statement on the matter.
So here's the crucial difference, and it's a big one. An adjournment motion halts everything for a full-blown 2.5-hour debate. A calling attention motion, on the other hand, lets business continue but forces a minister to the floor to give a statement and answer questions. You could say one is a full stop, while the other is a very pointed demand for information.
All right, so we know how to interrupt things for an emergency. But what about managing the flow of the regular debate itself? Let's look at the tools MPs use to speed things up, slow them down, or just make sure everyone's following the rules during the whole legislative process.
A closure motion is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a way for a member to stand up and say, okay, we've debated this enough, it's time to stop talking and start voting. And if the House agrees, that's it. The discussion ends right there and the matter is put to a vote.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. There are actually 4 different ways to do this. There's a simple closure, after everything's been discussed, or you can group a bill into compartments. Then things get interesting. You have the kangaroo closure, where you literally jump over the less important clauses to only debate the big ones. And finally, there's the most controversial one, the guillotine. That's when time is running out and all the undiscussed parts of a bill are just put to a vote all at once.
Beyond just ending debate, members can also try to delay it with something called a dilatory motion. And if someone feels the rules of the House are being broken, they can raise a point of order. In both cases, the Speaker really holds all the power, deciding if the motion is a genuine concern or just a tactic to waste time.
Okay, now we're getting into the heavy hitters. These are the high-stakes motions, the ones that don't just question a single policy, but directly challenge the government's authority and its very right to stay in power. This is it, the ultimate political weapon, the no-confidence motion. Its power comes straight from Article 75 of the Constitution, which says the government is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. So if the Lok Sabha passes this motion, it's basically declaring it has lost all faith in the government and the entire Council of Ministers has to resign.
And the rules for this are incredibly strict. It can only happen in the Lok Sabha. It needs 50 members backing it just to be introduced. And here's the most important part. You don't actually have to state a reason for it. Think about that. But the consequence is absolute. If it passes, the government falls. It's really that simple.
Now, it's really easy to get this confused with something called a censure motion, but they are worlds apart. A censure motion is used to express strong disapproval, but you have to state your reasons, and it can be against a single minister or a specific policy. And even if it passes, the government does not have to resign. A no-confidence motion, though, it targets the entire government, needs no reason, and if it passes, it's fatal.
All right, here's a really interesting, kind of subtle one.
At the start of a session, the president gives a speech outlining the government's agenda for the year. Parliament then debates and votes on a motion of thanks. But here's the thing, that speech is written by the government. So a vote on the speech is really a vote on the government's entire platform.
And that leads to a critical point. If that motion of thanks fails to pass in the Lok Sabha, it's treated as a defeat of the government. It's basically a backdoor no-confidence vote. By rejecting the address, the House is rejecting the government that wrote it. And the result is exactly the same. The government has to resign. It's a really powerful, indirect test of a government's majority.
Finally, let's look at a couple of motions that are less about political drama and more about, well, the day-to-day housekeeping, managing Parliament's packed schedule, and making sure members get the clarity they need.
With so many issues members want to discuss, not everything can get time on the floor right away. A no-day-yet-named motion is one that the Speaker has accepted as valid, but is basically put in a queue, a waiting list. The Speaker then decides when, or even if, it will eventually be scheduled for a full debate.
So what happens when a minister's answer during question hour just isn't satisfying enough? It feels incomplete. That's where the half-an-hour discussion comes in. It lets an MP ask for a bit more time to really dig deeper into a specific factual matter that's already been addressed.
The rules here are pretty straightforward. A few 30-minute slots are set aside each week just for this. The main point is that it's purely for clarification and getting more details. There's no big vote at the end. It's simply a tool to make sure members can get the thorough answers they need to do their jobs.
So after looking at this entire parliamentary toolkit, from the emergency break of an adjournment motion all the way to the ultimate challenge of a no-confidence vote, you're left with a really big question. Are these powerful tools primarily used for constructive accountability, for genuinely keeping the government in check? Or do they sometimes just become instruments of political obstruction, used to delay and disrupt the whole process of governance? That's something to think about.